Hi there, these comments are for FW, and I am Michael, the founder, owner, and the materials writer for all of your lessons at the 7-step system to pass a TOEFL IBT. You are the very last integrated writing practice test that I am correcting for the midterm. I apologize, it's taken me so long, but I like to do a pretty thorough job as I comment on my students' writing in the English language program, and thank you for completing it. So let's take a look at yours. You have, although the lecture and the reading focus on the same topic of business success, the two sources of information obviously consent that saving a lot of time to improve employees' materials and reports training can make businesses to succeed. I don't even think you need this. When you use the word make, believe it or not, you want to use an infinitive, but we typically use the base form of the verb after make. I don't know why. So you can make businesses maybe succeed here. Consent means agree. These two sources do not agree. They are very different, right? Okay, so let's take a look at a sample introduction that shows more what the relationship is. For businesses to be successful, the reading passage recommends that all employees participate in all meetings, read all the materials, and bypass the steps of the writing process when writing reports, but the lecture questions the efficiency of these suggestions, so you should have shown how the information in the lecture disagrees with the 3 points mentioned in the reading. So your introduction does not show that. All right, now first of all, if you say first of all here, you want to say second of all here. Okay, let's go to the next paragraph. First of all, in the reading passage, now notice how you have here, actually, I'm going to say how about asserts? Give you a little bit better vocabulary word. So the author asserts that businesses need to arrange too much meeting. No, if you say too, that's negative. The author in the reading passage has a very positive approach, I think, to meetings. How do we know this? Let's take a look. It says, all employees need to attend all company meetings, and companies should schedule as many meetings as possible. Meetings are effective for blah, blah, blah. Using this word is not the right tone. Now, if you say the businesses need to arrange as many meetings as possible, you might want to say so that, how about combine these together so the employees can learn more about the products. Is that what it says though? Let's go back. So meetings are effective for discussing controversial issues and making sure everyone is up to date with the current technology needed to complete their job. So I'm going to say this is not, they can learn maybe about how to do their jobs more effectively, but this information, I think, is just not accurate. So you have to make sure that you do not represent. Rule number 1 when you're paraphrasing, do not represent or misrepresent information. Now you want to say here, in the lecture, how about this? Use a transition word to show, in the lecture, the professor holds the view that short meetings are better than the meetings which are beyond 60 minutes or more. Yes, 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 this is good. But you have the most important point, which is short meetings are more effective than longer meetings. Yes, but why does the person hold this view? So you need to give what I call a major support point here. So it's saying limit the number of meetings you schedule because they can be a waste of time. It says long meetings are usually unproductive. That you should say something like that, I think, here. So if you said the professor holds a view that short meetings are better than the meetings which are beyond 60 minutes or more because these longer meetings are unproductive, you might say, and that would be a little bit better than we said. Second of all, employees might want to say according to the reading passage, employees should read all training materials provided by their companies. Why should they do this? Again, you're almost explaining all the important information, but I think you're missing the reason. So according to the reading passage, why should people read all the materials? So it's saying employees should be provided with supplementary reading materials that will help them perform their jobs more effectively. Employees are always encouraged to read all documents. So if you said this, if you said they should read all the materials so that they can perform their jobs more effectively, I would say, okay, that's good. But you didn't quite finish, I think, this idea. Now, raised by the reading material, I wouldn't say that. I would say in contrast to, you could say, so then we have in contrast to the reading material, the professor says that not you, I would say workers don't need to read the full materials related to their job tasks. Now here, I'm going to put a period here. You can begin. How about this? Use this. In fact. If you use in fact, you're using it to introduce an important point, right? In fact, only a small part of the material could be useful for the work. In fact, only a small part, maybe you'll put here, only a small part of the material, according to the speaker, put that voice marker in there, could be useful for the work. How about so? Cause effect. So employees should remember the big ideas and not the details. Now you're having problems with what I call point of view in this. You used a lot of you in here, right? And I changed it. So why did I do that? So let's go back to the actual lecture here. We can look at it. Let's see what the lecturer says. It says It does say this. It says maybe you need to remember the big ideas, not the intricate details. But remember, that you're actually trying to paraphrase this information, which means instead of using the second person point of view, it's probably better to focus on the third person point of view. That's why I changed the word you. When we got into your writing, I shifted it over to workers and employees, right? That's probably a better way to do that, because when you're doing a summary, it should be more formal. So even though the lecturer or the speaker was less formal in the lecture, it's probably better for you when you summarize it to do it in a little bit more formal way. But this is not bad. I think that you have a lot of the important points here. We have fine with the author of the reading passage, you remember here, says that employees should not follow all the steps in the writing process. But you're leaving out, this is really going to have an impact on your score here. You are leaving out a lot of big ideas here, right? Let's go back to what the reading passage actually says, because you can't just in just one single sentence really summarize sometimes an entire paragraph. Sometimes you might need a little bit more than that. So it's saying here is that employees, oh, wait a minute, I need to look at the reading passage first. It says, these employees should not try to separate the steps in the writing process because it is simply too time consuming. They should write the document at once. That is the key. You didn't say that. If you had said that, the author says, or the author of the reading passage says, that employees should not follow all the steps in the writing process because it is time consuming or too time consuming, then I would say you've pretty much captured the most important point of the reading passage. That would have been good. So you're not really complete in your response here. Then the lecture, how about this? What if you said, conversely, the lecture no. You have to state the main point before you get into all the more detailed information. So you say, conversely, the lecture says that it is important to follow the steps in the writing process because it's actually more efficient and less time consuming. And then say, in fact, the lecture suggests blah, 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 blah. You see what we're saying? So, now what I want to do is to give you a score, and then I will read a sample essay with you so you can see where you are. So I don't know, maybe 3 or maybe in the 2 range. Let me see, 2. You're a 3. Your response conveys an incomplete, inaccurate, or imprecise connection of the ideas in the lecture to the ideas in the reading passage. Your responses omitted at least one major key point in the lecture. Even though your response is somewhat connected to the writing task, it communicates only unclear, global, even imprecise connections of the points made. Yes, yes. You didn't omit a major point from the lecture, but I'm going to say yes to both of these. Your essay has at least one or more of these problems. So I'm going to put you right now at 3. So 3.0 out of 5. Or 20 points out of 30 on this practice test. Now what does that mean? For the purposes of our class, when you look at 3.0, that's going to put you at 70%. So what I like about what you did, you have a pretty good understanding, I think, of the reading passage in the lecture, but not completely, not a complete understanding, and sometimes you misrepresented some of the information from either the reading passage or the lecture, as I pointed out in this video. Now let's talk about the sample essay. Let's compare what you wrote to an essay that will score about 20 points higher, actually 10 points higher than what you did. So here's paragraph 1. For businesses to be successful, the reading passage recommends that all employees participate in all meetings, read all the materials, and bypass the steps of the writing process when writing reports. But the lecture questions the efficiency of these suggestions. First, the professor claims that the number of employee meetings should be limited and short. According to him, meetings longer than 60 minutes might be unproductive since workers usually stop paying attention, especially if leaders spend too much time covering introductory topics. He recommends that instead of calling a meeting, workers should try to deal with issues using emails or making phone calls. In addition, they should either decline going to the meeting or inform participants that they will leave the meeting after 60 minutes. However, the author in the reading passage argues that companies need to schedule as many meetings as possible since they are an excellent way of dealing with problems and staying current with modern work-related technology. Second, workers who do not have to read reports entirely, workers do not have to read reports entirely according to the speaker in the lecture because it might be a misuse of time. According to him, only small portions of each report are probably important. He thinks that focusing on main ideas is a more efficient way of reading a report. In contrast, the reading states that reading materials given to employees will help them perform better at work, and that it is recommended that they read them completely instead of primarily looking for main ideas as the professor suggests in the lecture. Lastly, to help employees become more efficient writers, the professor suggests that they follow the steps of the writing process. When it comes to writing reports, the professor explains that workers should not initially try to write imperfect and complete sentences since it will take too long to complete the reports. Instead, for the sake of saving time, he proposes to make an outline, write a quick draft, and finally revise and correct the mistakes. However, the reading states that reports should be written all at once since separating the steps in the writing process wastes time. Ultimately, the lecture casts doubt on the reading passage by stating that having frequent and long meetings, reading all reports in detail, and writing reports all at once will in fact make businesses less efficient and consequently less successful. And there you go. So, in your essay, you have to be a little bit more complete, a little bit more accurate in your response. You have to make sure that you are explaining the information accurately as best you can. Thank you for completing the assignment, and I look forward to reading your next essay. Now, if you want, I think it's a great idea if you want to do some practice before the final exam. I would highly recommend doing this, and what that means is you can complete some integrated writing practice tests directly in my online course. I will not count these as a grade. I will not put them in grade. It will not affect your grade at all, but it will help you, I think, to get more used to this type of academic writing. And you can work out some of the problems you're having right now. And I think if you did 2 or 3 more writing practice tests, I think that would better prepare you for the final exam in this class. So if you want to, go for it. If you take an integrated writing practice test, make sure you send me an email, and my teaching assistant will grade your writing in about 24 hours.